Hey guys, Alex here with Armadillo Armament, and today we have one of my favorite video types. We are going to be talking about pieces of kit that I've been using for a couple years and really breaking down the differences between these two holsters and really my experience with them. So on the right here, we have the QVO Tactical secondary holster, my newer of the two. And then on the left, I have the T.Rex Arms Ragnarok. Very overdue review. I've been running this for many years and I want to talk about it. So the first thing I want to do is just talk about the attachment method of these holsters. I have them on what is called a QLS fork. Now what that fork does is, you'll see that I have my belt set up on the table. I'll give you guys an overview of this at a later time. I have a video on my channel that discusses it already. But this fork, it connects to this piece right here, and it makes it so I have that interchangeability in holsters. So I can very easily take my 1911 holster off and put my Glock 34/Roland Special holster on. So with all that being said, let's move that out of the way. You guys can see things a little bit better. So on the bottom here, we have a Glock 34 holster. This is for my Roland Special. You guys have seen this on the channel. I will have more videos of it coming up. And then on the left here, I have the QVO Tactical secondary holster specifically for the 1911. And this is my newer of the two, but let's talk about the Ragnarok first. So I've been running the Ragnarok for actually a number of years, and I'll be putting videos on the screen. And the Ragnarok has suited me very well. This is a just normal friction retention holster. So it does not have a hood or any like locking type mechanism. So if you are running this for, let's say, duty use, law enforcement, you definitely want to be looking at the likes of Safariland. I know Alien Gear makes actually pretty good holsters now too, but this is more so for competition, civilian use. And honestly, there is enough retention here that I could definitely see this as a self-defense, duty style holster. Someone is not gonna pull up next to you and really get this gun out easily because you have to do it at the right angle, right? But regardless, it's definitely not intended for that role. And I want to talk about pros and cons here. So the Ragnarok Pro, it is pretty cheap. You can get this for under $100 shipped, and it will come with the QLS fork. I think this runs about 75 and then another 10 to 15 for that fork. And they make it in a myriad of different options. So a bunch of different Glocks and a bunch of different manufacturers. The Kydex is actually relatively thick, and the design of it is pretty good. One of my largest issues I had with other T.Rex Arms, their Raptor holster, was that the Kydex was just like too big for what it was, right? Whereas this is pretty form-fitting, which, funny enough, actually doesn't really matter that much on an outside the waistband holster. But regardless, you can see that it's contoured to the gun pretty well. And you'll also notice that this is a Glock 19's type slide with a KKM barrel. And this is designed, this is a Glock 34 holster, so the Roland will generally speaking fit Glock 34 holsters. Now over here we have the kind of like retention screws. If you tighten or loosen these, you're gonna make the gun tighter or looser. Right now I have it pretty tight just because I've been experimenting with things. But the first note, this is also gonna be a pro, is that it does accommodate thumb ledges, depending on the thumb ledge, assuming it's pretty, low pro. But this is the White Wolf Concepts thumb ledge. It does fit in here. You'll notice here that when I took the gun out of the holster, it did peel off a little bit of Kydex, right, on that X300 Turbo, I believe. Yeah, Turbo. Guys, that's fine. I feel like every holster has that. If holster manufacturers were really doing their job, they would, have them perfectly fitting, but at the end of the day, it's really not that big of a deal. And the Raptor has just served me very, very well. Wow, that is very tight. I gotta loosen that. The Raptor has served me incredibly well, to be quite honest with you. The largest downside of the the Ragnarok rather, is that it's made by T.Rex Arms. So if you've been paying attention, T.Rex Arms has just done really, really shitty things to their brother, and I no longer want to support them. I completely understand if you want to. A lot of people are able to disconnect, the product from the company, and I completely get that, the art from the artist. So if you're looking for a pretty good holster that is pretty cheap and doesn't have a locking system like a Safariland, I really recommend the Ragnarok. It is quite fantastic. Now, once again, I'm never gonna support them probably ever again. But this thing has held up really well. As you can see, it's been bumped around a lot, and it's difficult for me to give you like draw numbers, but I've at least put probably 5,000 rounds through this holster, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I do a lot of like 1R1 in holster. So this gun has gone, my Glocks have gone in and out of this holster minimum 2,000 times. And I think that's on the low end. And it's held up very well. It's pretty solid, it's pretty cheap. And it interferes with, it doesn't interfere with, you know, the QLS system. It works with the QLS system really well. So the Ragnarok is really good. Now, that is where our next holster comes into play, and that is going to be the QVO Tactical secondary holster. And everything I said about the T.Rex Arms holster definitely stands true in some ways to this one, but I actually prefer this. So let's talk about it. My Roland Special is kind of like my bread and butter. You guys know that I basically made my channel because of it. But you know, those of you that hopefully know this, the 1911 is actually my favorite platform. I love it so much to the point where I carry them. I want to carry them. I love how they feel. If you like 1911s, I don't need to, you know, get poetic about them. You know why they're great. So I really wanted to get a secondary holster for this. This is going to be kind of like my main gun. But my 1911 is actually more reliable than my Roland. Rolands are notoriously a little bit finicky. So if you take a look at my belt setup here, I've actually done some funny stuff with the mags. I've put some like tape in here to make it so 1911 mags fit in. And that's just because I really do intend on almost the 1911 being my primary secondary weapon. When my main gun goes down, I can use a 1911, which, you know, some people will say that's ludicrous, and that's completely fine. It's up to you. I'm a civilian. I'm not getting into, you know, a war zone anytime soon. But that's enough of that. Let's talk about the secondary holster. So this is made by QVO Tactical. QVO Tactical made probably one of the best videos on YouTube. It's his TRP operator video. I watched it nothing short of probably 50 times over the years. I've always wanted a TRP, and I finally got one, and here it is. And I knew that I wanted to support them. I actually reached out and said, hey, do you guys want to, you know, provide this to me, or is there any discount? And they said, you know, we don't really work like that, and that's completely fine. So I went ahead and I bought it instead because I really want to support that company and really see how their products are and give you guys some good information. So let's talk about it. Differences between the two. And, you know, I want the holster to hold its own merits, but let's talk about differences. The Kydex it kind of looks to be a little bit thinner. I don't think that's a problem whatsoever, and the QVO is actually a little bit better form fitting. So when you go to the website, QVO is almost like a custom manufacturer. They make everything, and if they don't make it, you can probably ask them and they will. Hence, you'll see that this is actually wrapped in a Cordura tiger stripe, and how cool does that look? But when I bought this holster, I actually asked them, hey, can you make it so it works with the thumb ledge? I'm actually not running the thumb ledge just because I don't really need them. But this is a ridiculously nice fit with like zero wobble whatsoever. The T.Rex Arms is also a really good fit with actually zero wobble too, but that's just because it's so tight. I think this kind of fits a little bit better, especially with the thumb ledge. The thumb ledge on the Ragnarok makes it a little bit overly tight, but it still works. This works with both. You do have the same kind of like retention screws right here. You'll notice they're very similar. And you'll also notice this is very form-fitting once again. That being said, I do think this is just a nicer feeling holster. You'll also, it's hard to articulate this, but I feel like this cutout down here is a little bit larger. So when I'm using this Ragnarok, I can kind of bump my knuckles into this, whereas with this, I really don't do that. And that's very important with 1911s, because 1911s, you operate them a little bit differently. When you're kind of pulling them out, you're sweeping that safety, and you really want a nice positive grip. So 1911s, you really want to establish a grip from the holster rather than establishing it as you're bringing the weapon system up, right? Further down the holster, we obviously have that Safariland, same attachment method. It works with my belt, and I'll be able to very quickly take that on and off. And then lastly, I just wanted to speak to the Cordura. The Cordura is a really cool wrap. I know that this is a little bit better with like IR reflectivity depending on your camo pattern. So there is technically a benefit to it. I think the largest benefit of it is that it just looks cool and it feels good. I've definitely smacked myself into polymer things on my belt, and polymer will slice you. Even though like this isn't sharp, polymer will mess you up. So when you have a Cordura wrap, I feel like it'll probably make that a little bit better. It's not going to slice you. But once again, the holster has just been absolutely fantastic. Now, the two differences between, or the one huge difference between the two is this is definitely a little bit more expensive. And that's because of the Cordura wrap, and also because it is probably, a little bit less mass manufactured. I did put in custom notes for accepting the thumb ledge, which they accommodated. And I think probably a little bit more attention to detail goes into these. So you really are looking at, this came in at about $150 for everything. And that can sound expensive to a lot of people, and I completely understand. And if you're one of those people, and if T.Rex Arms has your product, take a look at the Ragnarok. The Ragnarok is really, really, really good. That being said, the QVO Tactical secondary is probably my favorite outside the waistband holster, and I've used quite a bit of them at this point, and I highly recommend them. So, what do you guys think about the QVO Tactical secondary and T.Rex Arms Ragnarok? Are you going to continue to support T.Rex Arms? That's kind of a great question to ask. What do we think about QVO? I think they're pretty base. They have a cool little YouTube channel. But regardless, chime off down below if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer them, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.